The world we see is only a thin crust, a fragile layer of light that blinds us to the absolute darkness waiting just a few inches below. We walk through forests and cities feeling safe, never realizing that nature isn't just trees and fresh air. It is a massive, silent machine that has been perfecting the art of reclaiming everything long before we arrived. Every shadow in the woods, every cold current in the deep water is a reminder that we are only temporary guests. Today, we aren't just looking at numbers. We're looking at the exact moment when the Earth stops being a home and starts becoming a grave. Let's begin where the light dies first. At 200 meters deep, the sun is no longer a source of heat. It is a dim, ghostly memory. This is the Twilight Zone, a border between the world of the living and the world of the eternal cold. Here, the pressure is already heavy enough to collapse a human chest, and the silence is so heavy it feels like a physical weight against your ears. But this is only the beginning. As we sink deeper, the very structure of life begins to change. The creatures here don't have eyes to see you. They have sensors to feel your heartbeat, to track the vibration of your fear in the water. Imagine falling through a void where there is no floor, no ceiling, and no escape. At 1,000 meters, you enter the Midnight Zone. The temperature drops to the edge of freezing, and the weight of the ocean above you is like having a skyscraper resting on your shoulders. There's a terrifying purity to this darkness. It is a place where time doesn't exist, where the only thing that moves is the slow, rhythmic pulse of things that should not exist. They wait in the shadows of the abyss, evolved to survive in a world that hates everything made of flesh and bone. Think about the silence of a forest after a fire, or the stillness of a room where someone has just stopped breathing. That is the energy of the deep. It is an ancient, patient hunger. We often wonder what lies in the unexplored parts of our planet, but we never stop to ask if those things want to be found. The deeper we go, the more we realize that some doors were never meant to be opened, and some depths were never meant to be measured. We are stepping into a realm where the laws of man mean nothing, and the laws of survival are written in the dark. This isn't just about water or shadows. It's about the realization that we are surrounded by forces we cannot control. Whether it's the crushing weight of the sea or the suffocating grip of an abandoned wilderness, the message is the same. Nature does not care about your names, your history, or your future. It only cares about the cycle, the reclamation, the long, slow return to the dust. We are traveling toward a point of no return, where the air turns to lead and the light becomes a myth. Take a breath while you still can, because the next level of this descent is where the true horror begins. Now we pass the threshold where the last glimmer of blue disappears. Below 1,000 meters, the Midnight Zone is not just a place, it is a psychological weight. At this depth, the pressure is over 1,000 pounds per square inch. It is enough to bend steel, yet there are things living here drifting like ghosts in the black. They are made of jelly and teeth, existing in a state of permanent starvation. In this void, a single fallen carcass from the surface can trigger a biological war that lasts for decades. Everything here is designed to consume, to trap, and to endure. There is no mercy in the abyss, only the cold mathematics of survival. As we descend toward 4,000 meters, we enter the Abyssal Zone. The water here is just a few degrees above freezing. It is a world of endless plains covered in a thick, gray silt made of the remains of everything that has died above. It is a graveyard that covers more than half of our planet, a place where the bones of ancient creatures and the wreckage of forgotten ships are slowly swallowed by the mud. If you were to stand here, the weight of the water would be like having an entire fleet of jumbo jets pressing down on your skull. Your body wouldn't just break, it would be erased. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the occasional low-frequency groan of the Earth's crust shifting under the unimaginable load. But the descent does not stop at the plains. We are falling into the Hadal Trenches, the scars of the world. These are the deepest places on Earth, named after Hades, the king of the underworld. At 6,000, 8,000, and finally 11,000 meters deep, we reach the Challenger Deep. Here, the pressure is 8 tons per square inch. It is a realm of such extreme hostility that for most of human history, we believed life was impossible here. But even in this crushing tomb, there is movement. Tiny, translucent scavengers crawl through the dark, eating the chemical waste of the earth. They have never seen a sun. They have never felt warmth. To them, the surface world is a myth, a distant heaven that they will never touch. Think about the isolation of being at the very bottom of the world. You are miles beneath the waves, separated from air by a wall of water, so heavy it could crush a submarine like a soda can. Up there, people are worried about their jobs, their phones, and their daily lives. Down here, none of that exists. There's only the slow, rhythmic pulse of the planet and the realization that we are incredibly small. The abyss doesn't hate us. It doesn't even know we exist. It is a vast, uncaring empire of shadow that has remained unchanged for millions of years. When you look into the deep, you aren't just looking at water. You are looking at the face of eternity. You are looking at a place that will still be exactly like this long after the last human city has crumbled into dust. Moving further into the darkness, we realize that the ocean is not just a body of water. It is a storage unit for the world's secrets. Every secret the earth wanted to hide, it threw into these trenches. Every monster we imagine in our nightmares has a cousin living in these crushing depths. As we prepare to leave this silence behind, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly ready to know what lies beneath the final layer of silt? Or is the human mind too fragile to handle the scale of the absolute deep? As we leave the midnight zone behind, the descent becomes a journey into a different kind of eternity. At 4,000 meters deep, we reach the abyssal plains. This is not just deep water. This is a vast, silent desert that covers more than half of our planet's surface. It is the largest ecosystem on Earth, yet it is a place where time seems to have frozen millions of years ago. Here, the temperature remains a constant, bone-chilling 2 degrees Celsius. The pressure is so immense that every square inch of your body would feel the weight of a full-grown rhinoceros. But the most terrifying thing about the plains isn't the pressure or the cold. It's the absolute, crushing stillness. The floor of the abyss is not sand or rock. It is covered in a thick, suffocating layer of marine snow. To the naked eye, it looks like a peaceful snowfall, but in reality, it is a grim collection of the dead. It is composed of the decaying remains of fish, plankton, and whales that have drifted down from the surface for thousands of years. This biological dust settles into a gray, muddy silt that could be hundreds of feet deep. It is a world built on the debris of the living. When you look at these plains, you are looking at the final resting place of everything that has ever lived in the sun. It is a planetary graveyard that never sleeps and never speaks. In this wasteland, life takes on forms that defy human logic. Imagine creatures like the tripod fish standing perfectly still on long, needle-like fins, waiting for hours in the dark for a single vibration in the water. There is no light to hunt by, so they hunt by the rhythm of the ocean itself. Everything here moves in slow motion because energy is more valuable than gold. A single meal might have to last a predator months or even years. This is a kingdom of patience and starvation. The silence is so thick you can almost hear the heartbeat of the earth. But the creatures here have evolved to be ghosts. They have no color, no scales, and sometimes no eyes. They're simply biological machines designed to survive in a place that wants to erase them. There's a strange, haunting beauty to this desolation, but it is a beauty that kills. If a human were to be exposed to this environment for even a microsecond, the gases in their blood would instantly boil and their lungs would collapse into the size of a grape. We are trespassing in a cathedral of shadows. This is the part of the world that was never meant to be seen by eyes that rely on the sun. Every mile we travel across these plains reminds us that the earth does not belong to us. We are just a temporary flicker of light on a planet that is mostly cold, mostly dark, and mostly underwater. As we move toward the edges of these plains, the ground begins to crack. We are approaching the trenches, the true scars of the world, where the descent turns from a journey into a nightmare. We have crossed the edge of the continental plates, leaving the abyssal plains behind. Below us, the sea floor suddenly vanishes, dropping into the Hadal Zone. This is where the ocean stops being a place of water and starts becoming a place of impossible physics. We are now entering the trenches, long and narrow scars in the Earth's crust that reach down to 6,000 meters. At this depth, the pressure has reached 8,000 pounds per square inch. To understand that number, imagine the weight of an entire school bus resting on a single postage stamp. That is the pressure pushing against every millimeter of space. There is no air left here. Even the chemical structure of water begins to change under this force. At 7,000 meters, we encounter the world of the snailfish, the deepest living fish ever recorded. It is a creature that looks like it is made of translucent glass. It has no scales because scales would shatter under this weight. Its bones are made of soft cartilage, and its body is filled with a special fluid that acts as an internal brace against the crushing exterior. If you brought this fish to the surface, it would literally melt. It is a biological prisoner of the deep, a master of a realm where the temperature stays at a constant 1 degree Celsius. Here, the darkness is so old it feels heavy. You are now deeper than the height of Mount Kilimanjaro, but in reverse. If you flipped the world's tallest mountains and dropped them into this hole, their peaks would still be miles away from the bottom. As we slide down toward 8,500 meters, we enter the graveyard of the world's discarded history. It is a chilling fact that even here, in the most remote places on our planet, we find the traces of human greed. Plastic waste has been found at the bottom of these trenches, sitting in the dark alongside creatures that have never seen a human being. It is a haunting image. A chemical bottle from the surface resting next to an amphipod that has evolved for millions of years in total isolation. At 9,000 meters, the biology of life reaches its limit. The cells of most living organisms would simply stop functioning here. The proteins would unfold, and the very membranes that hold life together would dissolve. We are now in the territory of the giants that should not exist. Every step down is a step away from everything we know about biology. The sound here is a low, constant vibration, the sound of the tectonic plates grinding against each other, miles beneath the mud. It is a reminder that the Earth is alive, and we are currently inside its throat. We are approaching the final boundary, the deepest point of the abyss, where the laws of nature are rewritten in the crushing blackness of the Hadal depths. We are now descending into the absolute limit of our planet. At 10,000 meters, we have entered the Challenger Deep, a vertical cathedral of crushing silence located at the southern end of the Mariana Trench. At this depth, the pressure has surpassed 16,000 pounds per square inch. This is no longer just a physical environment. It is a nightmare of fluid dynamics. The water itself is compressed by nearly 5% of its volume. If you were to release this pressure instantly, it would be like an explosion of liquid energy. You are now deeper than Mount Everest is tall, with enough room left over to stack another dozen skyscrapers on top. The weight of the entire Pacific Ocean is concentrated on this single, narrow point, creating a force that would turn a solid block of wood into a fine, pressurized dust in seconds. The temperature here sits at a constant, deathly chill, but strangely, near the hydrothermal vents at the trench walls, the water can reach 400 degrees Celsius. This water doesn't boil because the pressure is too high to allow it to turn into steam. It remains a superheated, toxic soup of minerals and chemicals, spewing from the Earth's molten core. This is where life begins to look like something from another galaxy. We find xenophyophores, giant, single-celled organisms that look like twisted sponges, absorbing the heavy metals that would kill any other creature on the surface. They survive by feeding on the chemical runoff of the planet, living in a world where there is zero oxygen and zero light. They are the silent sentinels of the deep, existing in a state of biological stasis that could last for centuries. There is a terrifying psychological reality to being 11,000 meters down. Up on the surface, the sun is shining, seasons are changing, and empires are rising and falling. Down here, nothing has changed for 4 billion years. The darkness is so pure that the human mind begins to hallucinate, unable to process the lack of visual stimuli. If you were to turn off your lights, you would be in a blackness so thick it feels like a physical liquid entering your eyes. It is the ultimate isolation. You are closer to the International Space Station in orbit than you are to the people standing on the nearest shore. You are in a place where the Earth's crust is at its thinnest, yet the barrier between you and the world of the living has never been thicker. As we reach the true floor of the world, the 10,935-meter mark, we find a landscape that is both beautiful and horrifying. The ground is a pale, yellowish ooze, a mixture of crushed shells and volcanic ash that has been pulverized by the weight of the ages. There are no currents here. The water is as still as a tomb. But even in this final layer of the abyss, we see the movement of supergiant amphipods, ghost white crustaceans that grow to massive sizes despite the lack of food. They're the cleaners of the underworld, waiting for the rare organic fragments that survive the 2-mile fall from the zones above. They move with a slow, deliberate grace, unaware that they are the deepest living things in existence. We are standing at the very edge of what is possible at the bottom of the world's deepest scar, looking into the heart of a planet that does not need us to survive. Now, the journey must turn back, but you cannot leave the abyss without it leaving a mark on you. As we begin the long, slow ascent from the 11,000-meter mark, the crushing weight of the Challenger Deep starts to lift, but the silence follows us up. We have seen the true face of the Earth, not the green forests or the blue skies we call home, but the cold, dark reality that makes up the vast majority of our planet. We are a species that lives in the light, yet we inhabit a world that is defined by the shadows. The transition from the Hadal Trenches back to the surface is more than just a change in pressure. It is a return from a place where time is an illusion and human life is an impossibility. As the depth gauge climbs back through the thousands of meters, through the graveyards of the abyssal plains, and the haunting stillness of the midnight zone, a chilling realization settles in. We spend our lives looking at the stars, dreaming of alien worlds and distant galaxies, while ignoring the fact that we're living on top of an alien empire right here. The deep ocean is the ultimate frontier, a reservoir of secrets that the Earth has guarded since the first drop of water condensed on its surface. It has seen the rise and fall of dinosaurs, the shifting of continents, and the birth of humanity, all while remaining unchanged, unmoved, and utterly indifferent to our existence. The light begins to flicker again at 200 meters, a dim, pale green that feels like a ghost returning to its body. But as we break the surface and the air finally fills our lungs, the perspective has shifted. The horizon looks different when you know what lies beneath it. We like to think we are the masters of this world, the architects of our destiny, but the abyss tells a different story. It tells us that we are guests on a planet that is mostly uninhabitable for us. It tells us that for all our technology and all our pride, we are still fragile creatures of the sun, clinging to a thin layer of warmth in a universe that is mostly cold and dark. This is the end of the descent, but the cycle of the deep continues without pause. Down there, in the crushing blackness, the snails still crawl across the volcanic silt. The pressure still grinds the bones of the fallen, and the great tectonic plates still groan in the dark. The abyss is still waiting, patient and eternal. We have looked into the void, and in return, the void has shown us our true place in the universe. We are not the center of everything. This is the reality of the deep. This is the price of looking beneath the surface. Now, as the sun hits your eyes, remember the weight of the water, the cold of the silt, and the silence that waits for us all at the bottom of the world.